Ever feel like you're stuck in a loop? Different day, different faces, but same old story? Well, patterns don't lie. When the same issues keep on showing up, it's not bad luck, it's a clear sign that something needs to change. Today we'll dig into how to spot those repeating themes, as well as why they resurface, and will keep on resurfacing until you learn how to finally break those cycles. We have a lot to discuss, so let's talk about repeating patterns in life. Hello and welcome back to the Let's Talk About Mental Health podcast, your weekly dose of practical advice for better mental health.
Okay, let's go.
I'm talking about the way that patterns tend to show up over and over again in our lives until we finally stop and deal with what's really driving them. Now, we all have patterns that keep replaying until we figure out why they're happening and until we actually do something about them. Patterns are like life's way of holding up a mirror and saying, hey, this still needs your attention. And by attention, I mean your serious attention, because they tend to run a lot deeper than just the type of situation or issue that you keep on seeing. Patterns often come from old wounds that haven't been healed, or behaviors that you learned to help you cope with problems, regardless of whether or not they're actually good for you. Or they can even just stem from habits that have gone unchallenged for a long time. And until you pause and look honestly at what's beneath those patterns, they won't just fade away. In fact, the longer you ignore them, the stronger and more disruptive they often become. This can have an enormous impact on your mental health because repeating cycles can create constant friction and stress, not to mention the sense that you're stuck on repeat. And at worst, they can lead to you making the same types of bad choices over and over again. Recognizing these loops isn't about placing blame, it's about choice. Because once you can see the pattern, you can start to change it. And that's where genuine peace of mind begins. So today we're going to explore how to spot those recurring patterns, plus why they keep showing up in the first place, and the practical steps you can take to break free. Because whether you like it or not, life will keep on sending you the same lessons over and over again until you do the work. And you deserve far better than running the same old stories forever, like an endless Hollywood reboot of a reboot of a reboot. To do all of that, we first need to get clear on what these patterns actually are and how they work. So let's talk about what are life patterns. When we're talking about patterns in the sense of mental health and psychology, it's about the repeated experiences and choices that quietly shape your life. They're not random. They're basically habits of behavior and thought that you slide into so often that they start to feel as though they're fate, or that you have no control over them. Now, some patterns are helpful, things like brushing your teeth or exercising regularly. Those are examples of patterns. But today, we're talking about the ones that keep you stuck and that cause issues. It's the arguments that always flare up with a partner or family member. It's the friendships that leave you feeling drained. The projects that you start with excitement but then abandon halfway through. These cycles often begin as coping mechanisms. So maybe you grew up around conflicts and learned that you had to keep the peace at any cost. So now you avoid tough conversations. Or maybe you were praised for overachieving, and so you still equate busyness with your sense of worth. So what once helped you to survive can end up running the show long after it's still useful. There's also an inner layer to consider here. So patterns don't just live in your relationships, they also live in your head. The way you talk to yourself, the assumptions that you jump to, the stories you tell yourself about who you are and who you are not, all of these can replay the same loops. If your default thought is usually something like, I'll probably fail at this, then your mind will believe that and it will go looking for proof until it eventually finds it. So why does this happen? Well, our brains are wired for efficiency. Familiar pathways are much easier to travel, so your mind will often choose the well-worn passage, even if it's painful. That's because familiar feels safe, even when it's not good for you. The key here is to learn to treat these patterns as information instead of thinking that you have no control over them or that you're damaged or broken. Patterns are life's way of highlighting where growth is needed, like a built-in feedback system. And obviously we're talking about the types of patterns that aren't great here. Unhealthy relationships, unhealthy situations, toxic dynamics, even treating yourself poorly, a lack of self-esteem and self-worth and self-care. Those are the kind of negative patterns where, yes, you do need to do some work to address them because they are not going to just change themselves. And as you listen to this episode today, you might already be thinking of a few repeating themes in your own life. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's great because it's the starting point for change. Because once you can name a pattern, that's when you can finally begin to shift it. And we'll come back to that idea in a little bit. But now that you understand what patterns are and how they appear, it's time to look at why they keep on coming back and why ignoring them only guarantees more of the same. So let's talk about why patterns keep repeating. Patterns don't just simply happen. They persist because your unfinished business will always find its way to the surface eventually.